The New York afternoon was dyed with golden sunlight falling on Central Park. The laughter of children echoed loudly next to the jingling of ice cream trucks and the guitar of a street artist. In that space, a black woman sat on a bench, her gentle eyes watching two blonde children playing in front of her. Her name was Erica Wells, in her 30s, dressed simply but cleanly, her face exuding a calm and intelligent look. She was the nanny of the Harrington family, a wealthy family in the Upper East Side. The two children were Lily and Connor. She had taken care of them like her own for over a year. But everything changed in just a moment. A strange woman approached, frowned at Erica, then pressed the phone. 15 minutes later, two police officers appeared. One of them pointed at Erica. "Ma'am, someone reported suspicious behavior. Please follow us." Erica was surprised. Lily hugged her legs tightly, sobbing. "She's my nanny." Erica. But the words of a child were not enough. Erica was handcuffed, under dozens of eyes. A passerby live-streamed the scene online with the title, "Black Woman Arrested on Suspicion of Kidnapping White Child in Central Park." At the police station, Erica was repeatedly questioned. Despite her efforts to explain, she did not have any identification with her. Her wallet was left in her handbag at her employer's house. The Harrington family was on vacation in Italy, their phones were unreachable. Social media exploded with all kinds of gossip. Some said, "Another kidnapping case in disguise," others wrote, "No one has the right to judge based on the color of their skin." 3 hours later, an old inspector named Reynolds walked into the interrogation room. He seemed different from the other policemen, his eyes seemed to see something hidden beneath the surface. He placed a file on the table. Ms. Erica Wells. Former professor of child psychology at Howard University. Used to coordinate juvenile care programs in Chicago. Switched to nanny after her sister died in an accident, to take care of her two nieces. A clean record. Erica looked up, her eyes filled with tears. "I never did anything wrong. Just because I'm a black man taking care of two white kids, I'm being treated like a criminal." Reynolds was stunned. An hour later, Erica was released. The media began to turn. The Harringtons rushed back, holding a press conference to thank Erica and publicly apologize. The live stream was taken down, but the traces remained. Erica became a symbol of a larger debate about racial prejudice, about faith, and about what society is still unprepared to face. A week later, Erica received an invitation from a nonprofit. "We need your help to build a national program for emotional education for children, so that the next generation will no longer be afraid of what is different." She smiled. The darkness had receded. And the light began to shine in the most hopeless places. That night, when she returned to her small apartment in Harlem, Erica couldn't sleep. She sat by the window, watching the city lights shine down on the old tiled roof. On the table were newly printed newspaper articles, some supportive, some critical, but what sent a shiver down her spine were the hundreds of spam messages, death threats, hateful comments. "Give your children back to the white people. Who do you think you are, hypocrite? I'll come after you tomorrow." Erica closed her computer, her hands shaking slightly. The next morning, she was invited to attend a live television talk show, a show called Truth and Bias, airing in prime time. The host was Julia Carr, a journalist known for her neutral, yet sharp, attitude. Erica wore a simple, neat navy dress. She wasn't there to cry or justify. She was there to make clear what millions of people of color had never heard, their truth. The interview began. "Julia. Miss Wells, thank you for being here today. Can you describe the moment of your arrest?" Erica nodded, her voice calm but her eyes blazing. "I sat in the park, looking after two children I loved like my own. And then I was arrested like a criminal, just because I didn't fit the image that society thought was right. I didn't scream. I didn't argue. I knew, if I had reacted, I might not have gotten out of there safely." "Julia. What do you think it was? Erica. It was a combination of fear and unconscious racism. We're used to seeing black people as guilty, and white people as victims. No one asked me my name. No one asked if I needed help. They just looked and judged. Julia was silent for a few seconds. The studio was so quiet you could hear breathing. So what are you going to do next? Erica looked into the camera. I will not be silent. Not just for myself, but for those who have no voice. I will tell this story, until it no longer needs to be told. The interview became a phenomenon. Shared millions of times. But as it did, Erica was increasingly scrutinized. Some praised her for her courage. Others called her a racial inflamer. At the elementary school where the two children attended, some parents suggested changing the nanny. The Harringtons wanted to protect her, but were under great pressure from high society. One afternoon, when Erica picked up Lily and Connor, she found a note stuck under her windshield. You are a danger to the children. Get out before it's too late. She said nothing. But that night, she lay awake. The pain was no longer a sense of injustice, it was a worry. Was she putting the children she loved in danger? Erica did not go to the park the next afternoon. She called the Harringtons, asking for a few days off on the pretext of health. Her boss's voice was soft but a little awkward. Of course, Erica. It's just. Some parents are quite sensitive after the incident, you know. Erica understood. And that was what kept her from sleeping. 3 days passed. Messages from Lily and Connor came in regularly. Where are you? Erica, we had art class today, and I drew you. I miss you. But Erica didn't respond. She needed quiet. She needed to know if she was fighting for the right thing. On Saturday night, she went to a small coffee shop in Brooklyn where a panel discussion called Silent Wounds was taking place, about racism in everyday life. She sat in the back, intending to listen and then leave. But when the keynote speaker took the stage, Erica paused. Dr. Malcolm Price, a former sociology professor who had been wrongly arrested 20 years earlier for a theft he didn't commit. He lost everything, his job, his family, his reputation. But he was reborn, not as a victim, but as a changemaker. Malcolm looked straight at the crowd. I kept quiet for 10 years, thinking that if I didn't bother, I would be left alone. But silence didn't protect me. It just made them think I accepted that prejudice. Only when I told my story did I regain my voice. And through that, I found myself. Erica bowed her head. Her heart was pounding. At the end of the panel, as she stood up to leave, a hand gently touched her shoulder. It was Malcolm. I know you, he said. I watched your interview. And I saw the look in your eyes. Erica laughed weakly. I don't want to be a flag. I just want to live in peace, raise 2 children, and do the job I love. Malcolm nodded. I understand. But sometimes, we don't choose the light. The light chooses us. The question is, will you let it burn you, or will you let it light the way for others? Silence. The Brooklyn night wind blew softly through the empty seats. Erica looked up. I don't know if I'm strong enough to continue. Malcolm placed a business card in her hand. No one is strong enough to start. But we learn to be strong, when we have no other choice. The next morning, Erica returned to Central Park. She brought an old camera and a notebook. Not to babysit, but to record faces like hers, untold stories, doubtful looks, evasive glances. She would write everything down. Record. Interview. Collect. Create a project, Nanny Between Worlds, a book, an exhibition, a social campaign. And on the first page of the notebook, she wrote. Silence is safe. But the truth needs a voice. And if I must be the first, let me speak, for all those who have never been told. 3 weeks after the incident, as the media frenzy began to subside, an article quietly appeared in the online magazine The Echo with the headline, "Judging at a Glance, Who Really Called the Police That Day?" The author was Elliot Rains, a freelance journalist known for his incisive investigative reporting and his willingness to dig deep into hidden truths. Elliot was not swept up in the emotional wave. He believed that every story had an underlying layer that no one had touched. Elliot began by tracking down the live stream from the day of the arrest. Although the original video had been removed from the main platform, he found a copy on a Reddit group dedicated to archiving unusual incidents in American society. He slowed down the beginning, a blonde woman in a cream-colored coat standing behind Erica, holding a phone. Her face was visible for a few frames. Elliot ran image recognition software through a public database. The results came back with a name. Melissa D. Turner, Upper West Side resident, former social worker, now lives with her mother in an old apartment near the park. Elliot arrives at the address on a Wednesday afternoon. The apartment is on the 3rd floor of a rundown apartment building. He rings the bell. A woman opens the door. It's Melissa. She's a little startled when Elliot gives her name. But she doesn't refuse to answer. "I just did what any sane person would do if they saw a white kid being led away by a black person who looked out of place." Elliot asks again. "Did you talk to her? Did you ask her who she was?" Melissa is a little embarrassed. "No. I just felt like something was wrong. The way she was sitting there, so natural. So calm. I used to work in child welfare. I trust my instincts." Elliot thanks her and leaves. But what Melissa says makes him suspicious. The journalist's intuition told him that this was not just vigilance. This was intentional bias. He dug deeper into Melissa. And then, a strange detail emerged. 10 years earlier, Melissa had been investigated for child abuse in a foster home she was supervising. The case was closed for lack of evidence, but there was testimony from a foster mother who said Melissa had a strong bias against people of color in the system. Elliot called the mother, Carmen Ruiz, who lived in Queens. Carmen remembered it clearly. "She was always suspicious of me, just because I was Latina. She would come in unexpectedly, ask tricky questions, secretly record me. But she never did that with other white families. In the end, we lost custody of the child, not because of our fault, but because of the supervisor's bias." Elliot's second article was published the following week. It is titled, "When Intuition is a Mask, A History of Reporter Bias in the Erica Wells Case." The article created a wave of controversy. A group of human rights lawyers began calling for Melissa's case to be reopened. Online communities questioned the government about why the caller was not held accountable. A Change.org petition called for Erica's Law, a clear punishment for racist reports disguised as public concern. Erica read the article in silence. She wasn't happy. She didn't resent Melissa, she was just sad. Because without Elliot, the truth would have been buried forever under the label of legitimate concern. At the end of the night, she sent Elliot a short text message. "Thank you. Not for me, for all the people who have been seen but not seen." A month after the historic hearing in New York, Erica received an email with the subject line, "Don't just speak for yourself. Speak for us, too." The sender was New Voices Rising, a network of activists, teachers, students, and artists fighting for social justice across the United States. They invited Erica to participate in a series of talks called The Power of Presence, taking place at major universities from the East Coast to the West. At first, Erica hesitated. She had never thought of herself as a speaker. She was a nanny. A regular woman who had been handcuffed for looking in the wrong place. But Elliot texted her. "Erica, there are hundreds of people who have lived with the same fear you have, but have never had the chance to name it. If you speak, they will see themselves in it. And know that they are not crazy, not alone, not invisible." Erica agreed. But not to recount an arrest, but to recount a journey to reclaim their existence. Chicago, Northwestern University. She stepped up to the podium, and the room of 400 people fell silent. I didn't come here as a victim. I came here because I thought, if I don't stand out, if I don't make noise, then I'll be left alone. But then I realize, peace is not justice. There are people like me, in hospitals, schools, parks, stores, who have to prove that they belong here. Every day. Non-stop. A black student in the front row cries. Atlanta, Spelman College. For the first time, Erica talks about her mother, a woman who worked as a maid for a wealthy Manhattan family for 27 years and was never called by her real name. Just, Maria. My mother used to say, son, there are two kinds of silence, silence to live, and silence to die. I think it's time we choose a third, speak out to live for those who cannot speak. She ended with a standing ovation. Los Angeles, UCLA Outdoor Auditorium. A group of high school students invited her to speak, not for a lecture, but because they were doing a play based on her story. When the curtain came down, Erica couldn't say anything. She just walked up to the stage and hugged each of them. They took my story and turned it into something more beautiful than pain. I knew I did the right thing by not being silent. 3 months passed, and Erica traveled to more than a dozen cities. The story spread. A campaign called #JustLookingIsNotEnough began to spread online. Hundreds of people shared similar stories, followed in the grocery store, stopped at the airport, called a risk, because of their skin or their name. Erica was no longer the person who got arrested in Central Park. She became the first to step forward, and lead the way. At the end of the Boston program, an elderly woman approached her after her talk. She was shaking, and put her hand on Erica's shoulder. You're not just speaking for black people. You're speaking for me, an old Jewish woman who had to change her name to get a job in Manhattan in 1965. You made me feel like I wasn't weak when I was angry. Erica hugged her. No need to say anything more. That night, in the hotel room, Erica turned on her phone. A new message from Lily. Teacher, my school invited my mother to speak about you at Family Day. Mom didn't know what to say, so I said. Teacher Erica is not a babysitter. She is the one who keeps the faith for adults. My mother cried. Me too. Erica smiled, slowly putting the phone down. Outside the window was a new city. A different stage. But she was no longer afraid. Because now, her voice was not just her own. One night after the talk at Berkeley, when Erica had just returned to the hotel, she found a note stuck under the door. No name, no return address. Just a line, typed. The more you open your mouth, the more likely you are to lose your head. She stared at the words, her heart going cold as if someone had thrown ice water on her chest. No anger. No immediate fear. It was a familiar feeling, one she thought she'd left behind in that park last summer. The next morning, Erica was having breakfast with her lawyer Tanya Brooks and her journalist Elliot Rains when she told them about the note. Tanya immediately contacted the local police. Elliot was silent, frowning. Erica, this is not an empty threat. You know better than anyone, when women of color speak up, they have to defend not just their cause, but their lives. 3 days later, an anonymous email arrived in Erica's public inbox. Subject. Know when to shut up. It contained a photo of 2 children she had cared for, Lily and Max, on the playground near her school. No explicit threat. But too obvious to ignore. Erica couldn't breathe for a few seconds. Her forehead was cold, her hands were shaking. This was no longer her own. Tanya suggests, stop public schedules. Erica brushed it off. But Elliot didn't. Erica, backing down isn't losing. Sometimes, to fight a long fight, you have to know when to retreat to safety. They want you to be afraid. But if you disappear completely, the story dies. If you stop at the right time, it can be bigger than you. That made Erica think. That night, she live-streamed for the first time since the speech series. The camera caught Erica in a dim light, her voice calm. I got threats. Some people didn't want me to talk. But I didn't speak up because I liked the light. I spoke up because there was a time when I believed I wasn't worth protecting. If I have to stay silent today, at least leave the truth here, for someone else to pick up and talk about. The video reached more than 3 million views in 48 hours. Many civil society organizations spoke up to protect Erica. The FBI opened an investigation into the threat. The New York City Council passed the first phase of Erica's law. And while Erica retreated to an anonymous location, messages from Lily continued to arrive each week. Teacher, I heard from Mom, they wanted you to stop talking. But I told stories about you in class, they listened. You're the reason I say the right thing, even when I'm shaking. You taught me that before you were famous, remember? Erica closed her phone and looked out the window. Outside was the cold autumn woods, peaceful, far from the noise. But she knew, silence wasn't the end. It was a step back to prepare for a comeback, stronger, safer, not alone. Nearly 2 months after disappearing from public view, Erica Wells reappeared, not in a lecture, not on television, but in a special live television program called Two Worlds, One Truth, where characters representing two opposing sides sat down for a dialogue. Held on a Washington, D.C., studio, the show is the brainchild of an independent media group that seeks to create space for difficult but necessary conversations in modern America. Erica sits on the left side of the stage, facing Aaron Blake, the founder of the extremist group, Keep the Real America, which has been implicated in threats against her. Aaron is not a screamer. On the contrary, he speaks softly, smoothly, and sharply. That makes him more dangerous. The host begins. We have two people here, one who says he was threatened for speaking out, and one who denies responsibility, but insists that he represents traditional values. So today, let's let the truth speak for itself. The camera turns to Erica. Erica begins, slowly and clearly. I didn't come here to argue whether I have the right to live without fear. I came here because thousands of people have kept quiet to be safe, and in the end, they are not safe. Aaron chuckled. You live in a free country. But you seem to want to control the thoughts and reactions of others. We, people like me, only ask questions. If you feel threatened by the question, that's your fault. Erica didn't react immediately. She looked straight at him. No one asks questions by sending pictures of children in my care, implying that they are being watched. That's not freedom of speech. That's psychological terrorism. The audience began to applaud. Aaron quickly interjected. You can't prove it. And the fact that you disappeared for 2 months just shows that you're not up to the game you've chosen. Erica leaned back, calm. I don't play. I live. And you, if you need anonymity, darkness and anonymity to survive, then maybe you're the one who doesn't have the courage. The host asked directly. Aaron, do you promise that our group is not involved in any acts of threatening Erica? He dodged, changed direction, refused to commit. That was the moment the crew was waiting for. Immediately after the show, lawyer Tanya sent the case file to the FBI, adding new details. The video of the conversation went viral. The hashtag #EricaFaceToFace appeared on social media, attracting millions of interactions in just 48 hours. The most prominent comment was from a white mother in Georgia. I used to avoid looking directly at this. But when I saw her standing there, not afraid, not resentful, just facing, I knew, I couldn't keep quiet anymore. That night, Erica returned to the hotel. She turned on her computer and found an email from a Minneapolis high school. Erica, would you come speak to our 10th graders? They're learning about civil rights, and they want to hear about how one ordinary woman changed the country. Erica smiled. Not out of pride. But because the truth, no matter how threatened, buried, or avoided, eventually finds its way to be heard. And this time, she wasn't just a storyteller. She was a keeper of the flame. 3 weeks after the stormy debate, a call came from the Illinois senator's office. "Hello, Ms. Wells. We're holding a federal hearing on systemic racism in state law enforcement. An incident had just occurred in St. Louis. A 17-year-old black girl was violently restrained by police as she led her white brother out of school." Another parent called. "We need your testimony, not as a victim, but as a survivor. As a witness. As someone who understands." Erica paused for a few seconds before responding. "I'm coming. Not because I have all the answers, but because that girl deserves someone to sit next to her when she has to answer." The hearing opened before hundreds of people, lawmakers, journalists, civil rights representatives, and ordinary people who have followed Erica's story for nearly a year. The 17-year-old girl's name was Nia Bryant, her hair braided close to her scalp, wearing a white blouse, her hands clasped together under the table as if trying to hold herself together. She told her story. At first she was shaking. Then her voice grew clearer, more steady, as she talked about feeling threatened just because of her skin, even as she led her 6-year-old brother out of class. When Erica's turn came, the room fell silent. "I'm not here to recount the tragedy. I am here to point out that when we do not change the system will reproduce the damage. My story was once a single one. Now it has hundreds of variations. And today, this little girl is sitting in the same place I used to sit, not because time repeats itself, but because we never really stopped." She turned to Nia, looking her straight in the eye. "You are not wrong to be who you are. You are wrong to be in a society that makes you apologize for existing." An opposition MP asked. "Ms. Wells, do you think we are going too far, turning every situation into a racial issue? Are we inflaming fear for political gain?" Erica gave a small smile. "If that fear were real, if people were actually being dragged out of parks, pushed down on sidewalks, threatened, because of the color of their skin, it wouldn't need to be exaggerated. It's too much to bear. And politics? I'm not a politician. I'm a nanny. Someone who had to prove that she was safe enough to hold a white child. And I don't think anyone would choose that path to earn points. It's not for points. It's for injuries." After the hearing, the press covered it extensively. Nia Bryant was given a free defense. The school where the incident occurred opened an independent investigation. Backstage that night, Nia walked up to Erica and held her hand. "Ms. Wells. You know why I'm telling you all this today? Because when I heard you on YouTube the other day, I believe that someone survived. And if someone survived, then I can too." Erica squeezed her hand. "You didn't just survive, Nia. You've just started another chapter. And this time, you're not alone." One winter afternoon, in her small Brooklyn apartment, Erica was making tea when her phone rang. It was an email from an unfamiliar address, the subject line: "Invitation to the Global Human Rights Forum, Geneva, Switzerland." She frowned. That forum, which each year invites only a few non-political figures, mostly activists, living witnesses, people who touch the heart of justice. This year, they wanted to invite Erica Wells. Tanya, her lawyer who had been with her all this time, almost cheered when she heard the news. "Erica, this is a turning point. Your story will no longer be an American case. It will be a global icon." But Erica did not rejoice immediately. She looked out the window, remembering the sleepless nights of fear, the threatening messages, the times she held Lily so tight when they were both afraid they would never see each other again. "Tanya, if the story leaves America, will it still be the same? Or will it turn into something shiny, digestible, but hollow?" Erica walked into the large auditorium, where more than 300 people from 40 countries were waiting. On the stage, flags of countries hung in an arc. There was Vietnam, Nigeria, Brazil, France, South Africa, Palestine. She suddenly felt incredibly small. The man who introduced her was a Palestinian journalist. In his opening remarks, he recounted how he had been detained for taking an injured boy to the hospital, and accused of supporting a rebellion. When I heard Erica's story, I cried. Because it's not an American story. It's the story of anyone who has ever been questioned for trying to do the right thing. Erica's turn. She stood at the microphone. A moment of silence. Then she said, "I used to think, my story is very American. Only in my country, where race overrides every breath, where prejudice can kill before a bullet can touch." She paused, looking down at the seats below, where faces from many different cultures were present. But when I came here, hearing stories from Colombia, Kenya, India, I realized. I don't have an American story. I have the face of a world that hasn't healed yet. And if a black nanny, who was arrested for holding a baby of the wrong color, can stand here today, then maybe, hopefully, all of us have the same skin color. The audience stood up and applauded. Many wiped away tears. After the speech, a young South African activist approached her, speaking in a trembling voice. "Your story gave me the courage to tell my mother's story. She was a maid who was beaten for walking with her employer's son. She never told anyone. That evening, a message from Lily was waiting on her phone. I saw you on TV. You're famous all over Europe. But wherever you go, I remember you were the first person to teach me that love has no color." Erica laughed. It was a tired laugh, but deep. She no longer asked if the story would make sense when she left America. Because now she understood, when the truth is true, it doesn't need a passport. 3 years after she was wrongly arrested in a park, Erica Wells walked off the stage at a small college in Portland, her last speech before she officially withdrew from public life. Not because she was afraid. Not because she was tired. But because she believed she had run her course. During those 3 years, she won a lawsuit with Nia Bryant against the St. Louis Police Department, a milestone for children's rights and racial discrimination. Spoke in more than 20 countries, from South Africa to Sweden, telling her story not to denounce, but to open hearts. Returned to nannying, this time, founding a training center for caregivers of children from minority communities. She was no longer an internet sensation. No more TV or show business. Erica returned to the first thing that made her happy, caring. One afternoon, Lily, the little girl from back then, now 10 years old, stopped by Erica's center. She ran up to hug her. "Teacher, yesterday I told the class a story about you. Some kids asked, is Erica a superhero? I said, no, she's just someone who dares not to be quiet." The last night, Erica wrote in her diary, "If someone were to ask me, is it worth it? I would say, it is worth it, because every time I tell someone, someone else starts telling. And in this world, sometimes just surviving is a revolutionary act." Lessons learned. Erica Wells' story is a reminder that justice doesn't come naturally, it has to be demanded, held, and protected. One ordinary person can change things, if they are determined enough not to be silent. Personal pain can become a bridge to connect strangers' hearts, as long as we are brave enough to share it. And that, when the truth is buried, the storyteller is the one who keeps justice alive. The story doesn't end with Erica. It continues in girls like Nia. In mothers who no longer bow their heads when they walk down the street. And each of us has had to prove ourselves harmless just for being ourselves.